Senator Ayotte.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Kinkoff, I wanted to ask you, one of the goals of the Broadband Opportunity Council is, of course, to modernize federal programs to expand support for broadband investment. And obviously, you've heard a number of my colleagues asking about how do we do that, particularly in rural areas. New Hampshire is one of the states under the Universal Service Fund that continues to be underfunded. I think my constituents get a pretty raw deal because basically we're paying in 41 cents of the dollar that everything that we contribute. And I would welcome any of you to come drive around my state in Coos County and Grafton and even areas of Cheshire that you cannot get full access to broadband, which is very important to economic development and access in general. So I also would ask, how do we reform this program, and what can the Rural Utilities Service and NTIA, along with other federal agencies, do to encourage the FCC to tackle USF contribution reform? Because I have to say, I say to my constituents, I'm sorry you're paying all this on your phone bills because you're not getting it back, and we have a lot of needs. And so I'm kind of like, why are we doing this? So is there any look at reforming USF to make it more viable, more responsive to what we need in the country?
I would defer that to the FCC, who has jurisdiction over that program. I would say that the Broadband Opportunity Council has many options in front of it, or several options in front of it that could be beneficial.
With all respect, as the Broadband Opportunity Council, I would hope that you would make recommendations as to what the FCC could do to take this issue up, because it's a very important issue.
Thank you. So some of the issues that would have a benefit to your state and helping to promote broadband would be the Department of Transportation is currently looking at pushing down rules and clarifying rules to the states for providing opportunities to access the conduit, the pole attachments in those states today. There's a lot of clarity that needs to be pushed out to the states as to how current infrastructure related to the Department of Transportation can be used for broadband. I think that's going to go a long ways in letting people understand how to utilize it. The DOI, as I mentioned earlier, the towers that are throughout all the rural and federal lands, there's 4,000 of them that, clarity on how the private industry can get access to those to provide wireless is also a critical step in that direction. And then there is the open data inventory of federal assets, which is one of the BOC initiatives, which is an inventory of all the assets that are available, that external private industry can look at and potentially utilize to help leverage those to provide broadband, whether wirelessly or wired. So I think those are three big steps for rural states and other states around the country that it will help expand and promote the use of broadband.
Mr. Adelstein, do you have any comment on USF? And it seems to me this is an important issue as you look at opportunity to expand broadband and how we're using federal resources effectively to do that and properly.
I think you're absolutely right. We'd love to see the mobility fund the FCC's created but not funded the mobility fund to make sure that there's funding for wireless systems to build the infrastructure, to provide the business case to build that. It's also important that there be predictability. I used to head the Rural Utilities Service, and some of the changes in USF, I think, undercut the ability of rural communities to apply for loans and get them repaid because they weren't certain what the revenue flow would be. If you take out a loan, you have to know what the revenue is going to be if you want to build a wireless system or a wired system. I think it's very important for there to be predictability and consistency and understanding going forward of what that's going to be. The challenge in rural areas is one for our industry of trying to find the capital return on investment. And having these federal programs are really essential to make up for the fact that you have lower densities and similar fixed costs.
It's just really hard, I think, sometimes for me to justify this fund to my constituents, where if they could keep this pot of money in New Hampshire and our governor or our legislature could have it to build out broadband and opportunity, they could get a lot more efficiency out of it and probably cover much greater parts of our state and So that's what's the challenge is, because we feel like we're subsidizing areas that aren't rural, actually. So the fund sometimes used to build out duplication. And do you see that as an issue that needs to be addressed?
Well, certainly a lot of the fund is going also to individual phones called the Lifeline program, which is very helpful, but there's been some abuse of the system. We like to see the funds go into infrastructure.
Where everyone can benefit.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.